Darren Ledford, the printer, is making good money in these weeks. He runs the printing business in the shadow of Lookout Mountain. He's also on the city council. It's campaign season. Mail is going out in furious pace. Printing is being done in furious pace for candidates for local judgeships and local offices. And he's on the council and voted in favor of the panhandling ban, which is on its way to becoming an ordinance, an empowerment of the second strongest man in the county. And that would be David Roddy. The first, of course, is the most important man in the county, the most powerful, the man who has, you might say, the military edge, and that is Sheriff Jim Hammond, whom is elected by the people, and whose authority is a lawful, constitutional land-sourced authority. His authority comes from the land and the people on the land, not from the corporation. Now, David Roddy's authority to enforce the panhandling strictures, to bring about the panhandling compulsions that we, with Darren Ledford's help, have passed. His authority is corporate. It comes from corporation. It comes from an agreement by an entity, which is a legal fiction, which is to say the city of Chattanooga, the corporation. That grants him this power through the mayor's office. It is an executive branch division to enforce ordinances, and in practice now he's enforcing statute. Now I've been asking Basil Marceau about that. Basil Marceau, the candidate for governor, says that municipal corporations do not have punitive power, and therefore they don't have legal authority to enforce statutes in Title 39, which is the criminal code of our law in Tennessee. And yet they do it anyway. They do it anyway with the complicity of Neil Pinkston and the district attorney before him, the General Pinkston, as they call him. And that is a problem that everybody, it is illegal, but everybody in Chattanooga and everybody in Hamilton County agrees that it's okay, and no one will challenge it. In fact, it's been going on for 18 years now. If you read an important case that Mickey Barker wrote, Judge Mickey Barker, retired Chief Supreme Court Justice living on, I think, Lookout Mountain. He wrote this opinion called City of Chattanooga versus Davis, and that came out in 2001, reiterating all the points in an earlier major case. And that earlier major case is Chattanooga versus Myers. And both of them say, well, cities don't have punitive authority, and they're limited by the $50 fine rule that says corporation courts cannot impose fine or damages beyond $50, and that these are civil damages only, and the closest you can get to a fine levied by a city government or a county government is in the nature of a collection of a debt or liquidated damages. That is how fines are viewed by the law, by the high court. And yet, at the end of City of Chattanooga versus Davis, there's this very remarkable discussion about the Attorney General in the district. That is to say, now it is now Neil Pinkston, and the prosecutor. He represents the state, another legal fiction called the State of Tennessee, in court, and enforces the statute. And the judges defer to him, and they don't let David. They don't take up the grievance Davis mentions by the hand of Larry Summers. Right, Larry Summers was his defense attorney in that very important case, and the court says that raises the issue raised by Davis that Pinkston, the man now in the office, Pinkston should not allow the city to enforce statutes. And but the court says, well, we can't decide on that now. We're going to have to wait for a case that is brought against a city by a district attorney, enforcing the district attorney's prerogatives to pursue state crimes and not have the city do it. I hope what you see here is a kind of political arrangement. It is not a legal arrangement. It's not, in fact, legal, but it is a pragmatic and political arrangement that the city attorney, the district attorney allows the city to prosecute and act punitively under statute in a way that it doesn't have the authority in the statute to operate, and that is to say, enforcing Title 39. That would be enforcing anything other than the traffic statutes, which are granted specifically to cities to enforce, as if they were ordinances. And so the city enforces Title 55, that's traffic laws, because they are granted that authority. And I think the city charter names them as part of the ordinance base of enforcement. But again, the legal situation suggests that the city cops can't enforce these other laws. Only the sheriff can, right? The sheriff, Jim Hammond, can. When Sheriff Hammond was here in the studio, I asked him about that arrangement. And I said, is it by law or is it by professional respect and courtesy that you, the sheriff, let David Roddy, who was then just named the new chief, enforce statute? And he said that it is by personal respect. So it's not by law that that's done. It's by personal, professional courtesy. Okay, that's the basis of, as I understand it now, of the way things are today. And people like Basil Marceau, who understand these issues and fulminate over them, I think are on the right track. But how do you reform the system? I think it's very difficult to reform, because everybody has an interest in things being the same. And here's why. Here's why reform in many ways is impossible, especially the further away you get from a particular area or a particular jurisdiction. It's impossible for there to be a reform, even of the traffic enforcement, because the people at the top, the judges, the court system, the sheriffs, the police chiefs, the municipal corporations that run through their executive branches, the police departments, if they make a change, suddenly what they're doing is conceding and admitting that the way that they had done it previously was wrong, that it was without basis, and one dare not allow that to happen. So that's why you have effectively a stagnation, which is the status quo. You put status quo as a nice word for it. That is why these things are almost impossible to change, and that's why Christianity would say, well, these are oppressions that are fixed. They're fixed and they're unstoppable. We have in them, we have the poor, we have the African American, we have the minority, the immigrant, the orphan, and the widow. Those are 5 or 6 categories of people who are highly vulnerable and protected by God. God, in the Holy Word, in the Scriptures, demands that the Israelites, his children, protect these people because they're protected in the law. And he wants them to be protected in practice. And that's when the Israelites were unjust and oppressive and and the owners didn't pay the laborers at the end of the day, and oppressed the widows and the poor, taking their houses from them, putting them in hock, seizing them for non-payment of rent and so on. These are things that God, against God, which is very angry, and he promises a judgment, right? He promises a judgment against people who do those things and who compliantly allow them to happen, if those people who are allowing that to happen have any kind of authority or say. And that's why, you, my listener, the man who matters in Chattanooga, that's why you have to pay attention to these questions, and you simply cannot ignore them. You simply, I would like to suggest, can't. My name is David Toulis, and the number is 800-8949, 800-894-49. And I'm mentioning Darren Ledford, and I want to just get to a letter that came to the city council members by an organization called the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty. It's a 3-page letter, a missive by an attorney named Eric Tars, Eric S. Tars, a senior attorney at this lobby. It is a lobby, but it has on its payroll an attorney who wrote a 2.5-page single-spaced letter about the violations of the law that come by ordinances that intend to control the content of free speech. Free speech cannot be controlled in its content. And we have today in the news, I would say, 4 profiles in courage today. And one is regarding a man, Terrell Parks, who happens to be a minority. It doesn't really matter in a way that he is, but he was videoing an encounter between police or sheriff's deputies in Bradley County and a young man whom Terrell understood to be facing arrest. And he was running his phone. He was simply running his phone, having the same rights as I, as a member of the press, have. I have these rights as a member of the free press protected by the Constitution. And so do you. You, my listener, are a member of the press. If you have a phone, your phone is more powerful than press lords could have dreamed of back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. You, my listener, are a member of my press. You are my reporter. And I'd like to think that, in a way, you report and the world decides, right? That's one of our slogans here at 92.7 FM, Nougat Radio. You report and the world decides. Live on TuneIn Radio, live on TuneIn Radio, the app where you can play my show. You can play Sean Hannity. You can play Bloomberg Business News that we have at 1 o'clock as it comes out on your phone through TuneIn Radio. Just get that TuneIn Radio app and make me, David Toulis, your default radio station. Make us your default radio station. And then, you know what? If you tell a friend about me, David Toulis, that will increase my listenership by 100%. If I can double my listenership by you telling a friend about me, wow, that would just make me feel so good. I would be highly honored if you would just please mention me, David Toulis, to a friend and increase my numbers into the stratosphere. I would be just delighted if that happened. Because, you know, I'm here every day for you. I wear my bow tie for you. Even if my beloved wife, Jeanette, would declaim against the matching sequences on my choices today, she will say that does not work. But she's not going to see me. So I'm in charge of dinner tonight. She's making some travels. I'm in charge of dinner tonight, which is to say she's not going to see my disrobing of my radio host costume here at 92.7 FM. The blogger with the biggest pen, let it be, thanks to you, the blogger with the best pen in Chattanooga. That is to say, our wonderful, wonderful communitarian, community-oriented, and lifestyle radio station. That is us, lifestyle radio station. Live on Facebook. On Facebook, just if you go down the left leg there, the left column, there's some windows that you can touch. Videos is one. Another one is radio plugin. Just tap on that, and we stream live on Facebook Live there on Facebook. And so the attorney from the National Center for Homelessness, according to Alina Hunter-Gross' story at Nougat.com, I do suggest you look at that. They've been good enough there at Nougat.com to put up the letter inscribed deep, the little window there. You can read the letter to the city council members, including the conservatives who are not careful. These are men who are pragmatic. I think we need to end our time of pragmatism. We need to stop being pragmatic, and we need to stand on our rights. And we need to insist on what the law says is there for our liberty. And law is ignored probably more by state actors than by private people. Most private people desire to obey and comply. 800-8949. That's 800-8949 if you want to call me. Let me solve your problem today, okay? 800-8949. People who are in government are, I'd say, most careless of law. People who are not in government tend to be respectful of the law because they fear it, right? They fear the law. They fear what it means. They fear ordinances. They fear statutes. They fear reports of statutes and laws. Here we are in the tax filing season. They fear the main assumption about tax filing, that it's compulsory, and that everyone is involved in a revenue taxable liable activity. We all operate based on fears, right? And we do things in compliance and complicity with state and federal law because we don't want to hurt anybody, right? We don't want to be called to account. We're fearful of offending some official somewhere in an agency filled with thousands of bean counters. And so we comply. But people in government are often much less careful. And if you go to Nougat Radio today, there's a great little essay by Mike, Confederate Mike, from here at the station. He says there's a reason why government actors, from the police to the courts, do not want you to record them, as Terrell Parks did, using a video or audio device, because they want to be the only ones that have the official record. So they can lie on the record. Remember, if you're arguing facts in court, you will always lose. And he's jumping ahead there on his point, but he says you want to have always argue the law and not the facts. The facts will be changed to suit the state actor's needs. He will lie about it even if there is a video record. And that's been shown to be true by the New York Times, that had done a study of what's called tested lying by cops. And calling you live on the air with David Toulis, what do I need to hear from you?
Well, the city of Chattanooga's railroading them homeless people down there at the wellness center claiming that land's condemned, that it's toxic.
Yes, we've been reading those reports. What can you tell us about that situation?
Well, that wellness center is a government building. Before they build a government building, they're going to drill boreholes, take soil samples, take samples of the water off the water table. So did they know it was toxic when they built that building? Or is this just something they're making up to railroad homeless people out of there?
Are you suggesting that there's a building next to this empty lot where homeless people live that would have the same pollution that is said to be in that lot where the homeless have been living and are now fleeing?
Exactly.
Well, that's a good question, and I'm not sure what to say about that. I believe these homeless folks have left there. Their blue tents have been removed, and they've been given a couple of weeks time to find new quarters. Are you, if this land is owned by the city, are you suggesting that the city plans to sell this land at a nice price to get back its investment, or what do you know about the ownership of the land?
Well, it's my understanding that there's a 8-story hotel going up in there, already permitted, ready to start down.
Well, Emmett Gienap from the Times Free Press, who's covered that, has not made mention of that that point.
Yeah, wonder why.
Well, I mean, the paper doesn't have any particular interest either way. It seems that Emmett Gienap is, I would say, an honorable journalist, and but you're suggesting, caller, you're suggesting it would be worth looking at that land on the plat book and seeing if there's been a permit issued for any kind of construction or surveying work or other capitalization of that property.
Yes, sir.
Well, listen, anything else we need to hear about from you?
Not that I know of.
Well, listen, thanks so much for your call. That was a caller reaching us at our number at 800-8949. That's 800-8949. And the suggestion that he makes, he's presenting this as a fact, but we don't know who he is, and so we just have to take it here as a heads up. And the suggestion that our caller makes is that the land said to be marred by toxic waste from decades of industrial plant offal is really in view for development by a developer thinking perhaps of putting a hotel in there. That seems like not the best area for a hotel. It seems a bit far removed from the hub of the city. If you ask me, I'm not. That would seem. If I were an investor or a developer, maybe with the name Patel, I would think, well, that might not be the best place for a hotel. It's not connected with high-end attractions, venues, restaurants. It's a bit far from the downtown hub where a hotel, I would say, reasonably could be put. But that is something that we are being told of. This is David Toulis. I do thank you for your call. The number again is 800-8949. We are the Sean Hannity Station, the CBS radio affiliate, and my name is David Toulis. And we've been talking today about profiles. Encouraged Jim Hammond arresting a working man for using his car privately, and the working man's name is Rudy Soto Rodriguez. And I hope to find out more about this man and to look at his paperwork. He's being accused of using his car to get from point A to point B, and the Sheriff Jim Hammond is saying you cannot do that. You cannot do that unless you are a driver with a driver's license. And this innocent family man, whose wife's name is Daisy, will be in court, and I believe will be making some kind of defense of his activity in the private sector, using the public road, the people's right of way, the people's highway, if you will, for private and pleasure purposes, for private and personal necessities outside the scope of the enforcement of Title 55. We also have the big story today of Tim Boyd, the county commissioner, the taxpayer watchdog, who's being hit with seems to be a very questionable and iffy use of the extortion statute, and his enemy is a man seeking to hold the high office of county commissioner, and that is Brent Lambert, who instigated by a complaint about the way Tim Boyd gave out information regarding inside donations from developers that went sloshing through the Lambert operation there, the Brent Lambert operation, and raising questions about whether it was proper. So here we have a question about political figures, public spending, and donation receipt, and that has been converted somehow into an extortion attempt by Neil Kingston. Neil Kingston will be prosecuting that case brought by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation against Tim Boyd, the taxpayer watchdog on the Hamilton County Commission. His rival for the job, Brent Lambert, bringing this to pass, maybe to his satisfaction. And there's more. David Toulis, yournews.com.
Nuga Radio. 3, 2,